Welcome to Washington in Focus. I'm Brett Davis. Joining me today is the Center Square's investigative reporter, TJ Martinell. You recently authored a story headlined, Washington AGO ordered private college to collect documents for a potential lawsuit. This is another story in your ongoing series regarding the Attorney General's office creating a request for proposal for a contract regarding a police use of force database, which was awarded to Washington State University, the only university to bid on the project. Can you give us some background on this? How did a private university get involved in this?
Yeah, so what happened is there was a individual who is the head of a police database development company. His name is Bob Scales. He's a former King County prosecutor, and he was going to potentially bid on he was going to be a subcontractor with Seattle University to bid on the project. They ended up not doing it because they didn't like how the RFP was written. And Scales has accused both the AGO and Wazoo employees of shenanigans, effectively colluding to ensure that Wazoo got the project. And he eventually started threatening legal action as a result of some of the stuff that he alleged was going on. And in response, the AGO sent a litigation hold notice to a professor at Seattle University. And for people who don't know, a litigation hold notice is a legal order that a lawyer sends to their client to collect and preserve certain documents and information that could be used in a lawsuit. And as the problem with that is Seattle University is not a client of the Attorney General's office. It has its own legal counsel.
So is this even legal to send this type of notice to a school that's a private school that's not even involved in the potential lawsuit?
Well, the problem with it is that it's not illegal to do it, but could be construed as a ethical violation. The reason it would be considered an ethical violation for rules governing communication with representative by parties, meaning a lawyer cannot contact a person who already has retained legal counsel. That's considered unethical. You're supposed to go to their legal counsel. So theoretically, it would have not been a huge issue necessarily if they had sent it to Seattle University's legal counsel. But even then, they're not a client of theirs. So the other issue is some of the language in the litigation hold notice includes failure to take reasonable steps to ensure the proper preservation of potential evidence will expose your agency yourself to a broad spectrum of court-imposed sanctions. So this is coming from the Attorney General's office saying that there could be sanctions imposed on you if you don't adhere to this hold notice, which is not legally binding.
I see. So I understand from your story that Scales basically called this a fishing expedition. His
argument is that they did this knowing they had no legal authority to do so, thinking that the professor would just comply and not forward it or do whatever, wouldn't question it because it's coming from the Attorney General's office.
Right. And did you speak to anyone in the legal field about this kind of thing? What do they have to say about it?
Yes, I did. I spoke to an attorney, and they said, as I mentioned earlier, that this is not something that they should be doing with a non-client. This is how you communicate with your own client. So if they were to instruct Washington State University, which is a client of theirs, to hold and preserve documents and information, that would be appropriate because they're a client of theirs. But They're sending this to private entities that they do not represent.
The headline in the story itself mentions a potential lawsuit. Is there any word on how that's going? You think that's going to become a reality, or?
I'd say it's very, very likely that there's going to be a lawsuit filed. And for background, there already is a lawsuit that Scales has filed in a county superior court against Wazoo over public records related to this RFP. And Wazoo is being represented in that lawsuit by the Attorney General's office.
Wow, what a tangled web.
Indeed.
Given that the Attorney General, Bob Ferguson, is running for governor, I wonder how that's going to impact his run.
Yeah, it depends all on what's discovered during the lawsuit as far as what's revealed as in terms of evidence from the Attorney General's side and Washington State University.
All right. Well, we look forward to your continued coverage of this ongoing story. The listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For TJ Martinell, this is Brett Davis. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.